I always remember Time Shift as being one of the first FPS games until it came out. What's interesting is that it could have been. It had the same concepts, and some sections are still near identical, but the reception was mainly bad and Atari was already bleeding money at that point, so they sold it off to Vivendi, who already had an FPS hit on their hands after publishing Fear. One of the first FPS games. However, before they launched the game, they gave the developers Fear. And what came next was a huge graphical upgrade and art shift, along with massive nuts, because if you've played Time Shift, you know it has a time shift. I knew this wasn't always the case, but didn't know just how far that went. It's worth mentioning this was originally going to be a game.
And they got this game right.
Floating around online. Goodbye, Dennis Quaid. Welcome, silent protagonist. So the term development hell is definitely interesting, and to no surprise, the game still has some issues now. For example, the Steam version, and this was an official patch, not some obscure fan thing, so I'm not sure what happened there, but it means some more graphical issues and some bugs, which can include Time Shift not functioning correctly, making the game way easier. Of course, this all assumes you were actually able to launch it. If you want to be extra fancy, the game does support XXX sound, though the game menu itself won't reflect that it's actually on. Though it might not always make sense, like why your earpiece is doing that.
Listen to this.
I always remember Time Shift as being one of the first FPS games until it came out. What's interesting is that it could have been. But let's be real, you're getting this for the Time Shift. And that about covers the essentials, so let's get started. Liver King Dr. Kleiner, also known as Dr. Crone, has stolen the alpha, but thanks to generous public funding, there's also the beta. This one is more militarized, has local time control technology, and comes equipped with Sam, who is an AI who could do everything. You play as Time Man, who chases him, and yeah, I know that alone already causes a bunch of people to type out plot holes because those are endless, but they later confirm there are multiple time shifts and the alpha jumped across that. Or something. A lot of what happened or what is happening is kept extremely vague, and we'll talk more about why that is, because surely all the details will fall into place later. So let's talk about that visual. The good news is that the game does look next gen, but as someone who's more used to FPS games from just being a port on PC, this one holds up and the lighting is good too. This is one of those things that YouTube compression absolutely massacres, but the one in particular is a standout. It feels like you might be able to drown. That's already good, but for a game with time control powers, it's perfect. It ends up being a gray and muted game overall, but this is one where it does feel appropriate, especially when you see what the game looked like before, where it's more colorful, cartoony, even if they don't give a single shit about aesthetics. So enhancing a decrepit area as little as possible made sense for them. Enemy soldiers can be thick, then some look a little more diesel punk. Big, inefficient, brutal mans that do get the job done. Then, running through all of that, there's a Leonardo da Vinci. The skies are filled with airships and planes, so you encounter weird combinations of these things, like what looks like a modern jet engine, but then there are holdovers and remixes from the old version of the game, like your main carbine is just the most gun to ever gun. When you put those same guns on Marines, they're cartoonishly big, and now Halo has had to stick with it, without breaking the style too much. Anyways, if you wondered why guns can be so big, this is mainly why. But beyond that, a lot of character designs wouldn't look out of place in Gears of War, which came out. Like, sure, it's an alternate 1939, but everyone looks and talks like—
The switches are in the control room! Hurry, bro! Hurry!
This isn't me saying, ooh, you're mixing up art styles, which you could still argue if it's the whole time is all messed up angle. The issue is, all of this is filtered through an official patch, not some obscure fan thing, which makes it more generic than it could have been. In the story, there are lots of buildings and facilities and giant statues. There are rotting interiors covered in graffiti, which makes sense when it's in Half-Life 2. And there were other games that drew from this concept that did work visually and fit inside the story they were telling. This makes no sense. It's a choice that waters everything down into mush. I mean, I'm gonna guess the game being set in 1939 wasn't an accident, unless they're all Oz heads. Because the story is so thin, you mainly only have these visual cues to go off of. There's no slow unfolding of the world, there's no build up to the uprising, no magic hero from the future that turns the tide. Instead, you don't feel that significant, and the world you're in doesn't feel real either. It ends up feeling like a fake game that would play on CSI. And if you've ever played any game, it starts coming across as a fever dream. Like, it took me a while to realize I was fighting the police. So, how about the sound? It's fairly average all around, but there's more to it. Because you have games like Fear where everything slows down, Time Shift will do that for your enemies. This is still fun in its own right, especially since slowing down time speeds you up slightly. So if anything, your version of bullet time is the priority lane. I've got no complaints there. As for the music, Time Shift definitely has some. And sometimes you notice it. It doesn't feel worth going into. It's all okay. Let's just move on to the game itself. There's a lot of joy to be found in games, especially ones where you can shoot someone in the face. Sometimes it doesn't matter if there's an amazing story. On a base level, time shift is an FPS. You have the 2-weapon limit, the regenerating health, the helicopter boss, it's all here. But outside of time powers, there's still good stuff worthy of attention. This comes with a big asterisk. The actual gunplay doesn't feel amazing, because no matter what difficulty you play it on, if you find it challenging, that's going to be very front-loaded. Did someone chuck a grenade at you? Fuck you, it never happened. Even with your suit's armor, most of the enemies are better protected, and you'll usually die quickly in a straight-up fight. It still gives you a kind of superhero shooter feeling that a lot of other games still don't have. Also, since time is stopped to the atomic level, you can also walk across water and walk through flames unharmed. Some enemies could have defenses, and there are extra fun touches too, like being able to grab a gun out of an enemy's hands. That leaves you with reversing time, which is basically slow-mo's slower cousin. There are flashes of greatness throughout the game. It's more just how often that actually happens. You can pass through a large room filled with boxes and cover that feels like it should be a fighting arena, and nothing happens in it. Fairly early on, you get an explosive bow with a large magazine that one-shots enemies. It means there's no guesswork, and even without that, there's not much to guess. There aren't many weapons that take advantage of the time mechanic, and most are Half-Life derivatives again. The game is only about 5 or 6 hours long, but that is about the time when the gimmick starts getting old, so that works out. It's just the incredible lack of substance to it. When it comes to games, this is more the kind of thing I'd want to see. An amazing idea with flawed execution. As a package, it just leaves your brain immediately. Like the story, which is so bare-bones nothing. And ironically repetitive, like helping the rebels escape on a Zeppelin and you leave on a plane, then you blow stuff up and then capture a new Zeppelin and then leave on a plane. Taking you back to the first level, but now you shoot the bad man and you win. The final boss gives you 3 feet of movement space. I promise, you're not missing a story. The most interesting thing in the story is figuring out whether or not this game also had multiplayer. I went to check that and... get me out of here.
It looked like Mario in the future.
The switches are in the control room! Hurry, bro! Hurry!